Okay, guys. So apparently I got to be careful what I say because they didn't like that. They just cut the feed. Just like that. Feed cut. Never seen anything like it before. Um so we'll try have to try again. We'll have to try again with this. But as I was saying, maybe it's understandable. Maybe it's understandable that now that we know what we know about the rulers, maybe the Irish cause is a little bit more understandable. But at any rate, guys, let's get into the meat of this. Apparently, we don't have that much time. We don't have that much time, so that's what's they waited for that. You know this, Alex. You know that. What the fuck is going on with this stuff? All right, here we go. Yeah, you guys know that New Zealand is CABAL country, so they're all about the New Zealand wines. Rothschilds, they love their wines. No, guys, it wasn't my phone. It like literally just shut off. I've never seen anything like it before. It's very, very strange. All right. So I have a lot of things here to talk about with you guys. A lot of stuff. A lot of stuff. But I would like to start with one thing that happened because I want to head it off at the impasse. I want to head off the inevitable doom posting where, oh my God, can you believe what happened today, guys? Can you believe it? Rudy Giuliani, acting on the behalf of the Trump campaign, saying that basically what happened in Philadelphia when, they broke the law and they wouldn't let any poll watchers there and they blocked the buildings and they made people stand like a football field away or whatever. Guys, can you believe it? Can you believe that the Philadelphia court said that all of that was totally okay? Can you believe it? I don't like. There's people who saw that news and they're freaking out. They're like, Trump's case, it's not going to work. The Philadelphia Supreme Court said it's not going to work. Trump's doomed. The lawsuit's over. Come on, guys. What do we say from the very beginning? The very, very beginning of this. It's going to the Supreme Court of the United States. It was. Do you think that like a court in Pennsylvania, which is completely appointed by Democrats, you have two Republicans on that court? Do you think for a second that like these are political appointees? There's no way that they were going to vote for it, and we know this. I want you guys to understand something about the Trump strategy. Okay, not that I'm privy to all the details here, but they are going through this by the book because they want everything above board. Okay. They also want the Supreme Court to have a really strong case here, a strong case to take it to the Supreme Court. All right. And they also want to get everybody who's involved in the corruption smoked out. So do not for a second think that any of this stuff is like a negative. It doesn't matter at all. It doesn't matter at all, especially because the courts themselves are the reason in Pennsylvania in particular that things are going to be going to the Supreme Court. And you guys know why that is? Can someone tell me why the courts in Pennsylvania don't fucking matter at all? Can someone tell me why? Salman, you and the IRA, man. Can someone tell me why it doesn't matter? Well, it's because they're all damn sure. But here's the thing: why would the Supreme Court get involved in a matter that it's supposed to be a state issue? They would get involved with it. I'm not related to Justin Timberlake, but I have role played him many a Halloween. It goes. It's not because it's not actually because it's a federal matter necessarily. The reason is because per the Constitution, the state legislature decides the laws that govern voting in the state. And what happened in Pennsylvania? What happened? You had the state legislature said that you could ballots delivered by 3 p.m. on November 3rd or by 6 p.m. on November 3rd, that was the cutoff date. And then they extended it. The legislature extended it to 8 p.m. Okay? That was the cutoff date. Any ballots received after that were illegitimate per the state legislature. That is why Justice Alito said you have to segregate the ballots that came in after 8 p.m. November 3rd. Not because SCOTUS is trying to tell Pennsylvania how to do its job. SCOTUS is telling the governor and the courts that they do not have the ability to overwrite the state legislature, which is Republican. Okay? That is a very, very important, because that's the reason it's going to SCOTUS. That's the legal. How many ballots came in after 8 p.m.? About 700,000. Okay? About 700,000 ballots. So not a small matter, right? We had Trump probably winning Pennsylvania by about 10 points. And then you had 600, 700,000 ballots come in over the course of a week afterwards. And you had the Secretary of State in Pennsylvania, who was, at the behest of the governor, total just like demon. Like, you look at this guy, just disgusting creature, like a disgusting creature, like a kind of thing that would crawl out under a rock and like grab your kid's leg, like just like a totally disturbing individual to even be around. So this is like a big thing here, right? This is a big thing. They just kept saying, oh, well, you can extend this, you can do this. And then the courts also said their own stuff. Oh, well, you can have them come in for a couple extra days. Hey, guys, sorry, you don't have the fucking jurisdiction. So the judge can say, you think that the judge, which, I don't actually know if it was the exact same court, but do you think that the judicial system, like a democratic justice, is going to say that, oh yeah, well, actually our ruling was incorrect, we couldn't have done our ruling? They're not going to say that. It's going to the Supreme Court. It was always going to the Supreme Court. Okay? But we're catching them all. That's all it is. Speaking of catching them all, got to catch them all, right? We got some rare Pokemon here. We got some rare politicians to capture. We got the Georgia. We got Brian Kemp and his Secretary of State. Hey, why are they doing a fake recount? Oh man, I guess it's because they got paid by Dominion. Their family members were getting kickbacks from Dominion. It is so sick and disgusting, the amount of corruption. But guys, here's the thing. We got them all. We got them all. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And that's what I want you guys to pay attention to. Don't get caught up in the noise. Corrupt people are going to act corrupt. They're going to try to protect each other. They're all swamp rats. And every single time they do it, they just put a big light on themselves. And it's like, oh, well, let's get some subpoenas. Let's look into your, communications. Oh, let's look into your banking records. Oh, you got some money from Dominion. That's very interesting. That's the reason that's the reason this judge in Philadelphia. Let's look into him, right? Let's let them all reveal themselves, because it's going to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court's going to take care of it. It does not matter. It's good. As far as I'm concerned, it's good. I want them out. I want those weasels out. I want to catch them all, man. I want to catch them all. Got to catch them all. Someone's got to make like a Pokemon meme of like, got to catch them all with all these little creatures. So it's all good. It's all good. Trump's not worried. And, they were recorded in real time. In real time, they were caught changing the votes. We saw it on national television. They're fucked, guys. They are so fucked. They're so fucked. It's not even a question. And so let's talk a little bit about this KRAKEN that's being released. Okay, the chairman of the FEC, pretty cool, right? People who regulate tech, people who regulate the guy who can destroy big tech with a swipe of his hand. He's on Team Sidney Powell. The new guy here. He's on Team Sidney Powell, and he said that she's an incredible lawyer, and if she says something's true, she doesn't lie. She doesn't lie. She doesn't lie. That's the thing. She does not lie. And so when she says that she's got a fire hose of evidence, so much evidence that they can't even keep up with it, like, we're in a good situation here. We're in a really good situation. And so it's all just panic stuff. And you can see they've already backtracked a bit, talking about how, well, maybe, they're already saying projected winner for Joe Biden. They've already, some certain channels have backtracked a bit. But, we got this dream team here. We got Sidney Powell, we got Rudy Giuliani. Like, I couldn't imagine a better combination to take down the swamp than those two together. And so she knows exactly how to file these things. She's very aggressive. She's got the strategy in place. They're gonna take them all down. Sidney Powell is not cabal. Dude, you're just like, look, I love you, man, but you're just like, you're kind of spurging out here with all sorts of random stuff. Rudy was involved with 9/11. This is like, there's no real evidence that Rudy was involved in 9/11. I've looked into 9/11 substantially. He was mayor at the time, but he was not, that doesn't mean that he knew about it. That does not mean that he knew about it. And you also have to look at these people like, there's no way that somebody cabal, unless they flipped a long time ago. Okay, there's no way that they would be involved with Trump trying to literally take down the entire group, like like working directly with Trump to do it. Rudy Giuliani, Sidney Powell are probably two of the least cabal people that exist out there. They are, and that's why it's good to have them. That's one of the things with Trump's team. They are completely, like, it's becoming more and more loyalists. It's becoming more and more professionals who are just they're gonna wipe them out. So let's and the last thing I wanted to say about releasing the KRAKEN, Sidney Powell. They apparently got this server. The U.S. Army apparently grabbed the server in Germany, which has all the hard evidence of this stuff, not simply just the technical stuff that we've already, caught on with. And more than that, there's been this map that's been circling around, this electoral map, that Trump actually won 410 electoral votes, including California, including Hawaii, which blows me away. Um, I would have thought that was a bit of a ambitious map. Not because I actually don't think California could have flipped. Maybe the colorations on the map are a bit off. Some of the things on the map are somewhat plausible. Like, you could see in a big landslide, you could see New Mexico, Virginia, Maine, Rhode Island. You could see those all flipping. And you could see California flipping too. Because remember what I talked about last Periscope? If there was an enormous amount, like, we have to take into consideration that our projections, people like Richard Barris, their projections of how long of what a state's going to do, what a state's going to vote for, those projections are based on past years. And so if there's been massive amounts of fraud, which there certainly was in 2018 and probably going all the way back to 2012 in California, especially with these electronic systems, right? How many, between that and like the absentee ballot votings, they've been just gradually taking over every single congressional race, right? Every single congressional race in California. So California is going to the point where it's like 70% blue. And people were saying, well, that's like crazy. California is a completely different country now. But, is that really true? Is that really true? California was a solidly Republican state. It was a solidly Republican state, guys. It was as Republican as Arizona, which is now not as, solidly Republican. But people talk about Arizona going the way of California. But so if you have enormous amount of fraud over the last decade in the state that's starting to make it seem like it's getting more and more blue than it actually is, then plausibly in an election where you have Trump flipping especially huge numbers of Hispanics, which he did, right? Flips huge numbers of Hispanics to his side. Then you have reduced Democratic turnout, and then you have way higher Republican turnout. You could see it going red. There's no reason that you couldn't see it going red. Now, I don't know if that's true. Sidney Powell retweeted somebody who said that. So at the very least, we know that we're directionally correct here. At the very least, we know that we're talking about substantial numbers of states flipping, a massive electoral landslide victory for Trump. Whether or not that map was exactly correct is not necessarily clear from a Sidney Powell retweet, but we know it's directionally correct. That's for sure. Well, the thing is, like, she could have retweeted it, but there could have been a few little minor issues on it, and she might have retweeted it anyway. Like, that doesn't, it wouldn't have to be exactly the picture for her to retweet it. It would have to be more or less the picture, though. It would have to be more or less the picture. So we'll see. Now, there's another guy, and I mentioned it on Twitter, 1,000 Pieces. Very good documentary. Very good documentary. There's a guy in there called Robert Steele who is in intelligence, basically himself. He's a case officer, and he's got his own little channel. And he said he corroborated this. Now, he didn't say California went red. He didn't say that. He did not say it. He didn't say it. But what he did say is that the numbers that went for Trump in California were so substantial that it flipped like a slew of House seats. Like, we're talking like 20 House seats flipped in California, something like that. And that with all these House seats flipping in California, Trump retook the House of Representatives. So, and Steele's another person. He's familiar with the information. He's not making this stuff up. He's also saying that there's going to be 100 resignations from Congress in 2021 because they're taking deals and stuff. So we'll see. We'll see, guys. We'll see. Salmon, I'm not sure if I saw the video you sent me. I got so many videos tonight. I tried to watch stuff, but I have so much time. You can let me know which one it was. So let me see some other things here. One of the other big things, and this was also, I think, part of the Pennsylvania case, was equal protection clause being violated. This is another thing that goes to the Supreme Court, bypasses the state court. Equal protection clause, that there were some jurisdictions in Pennsylvania, mostly in Philadelphia, and I think one other county, Delaware County maybe, who had basically election officials contacted Democrats in those counties to correct errors on their ballots when that was not offered to everybody else across the state. It's an equal protection violation. Automatic fuck you if you break that. Automatic fuck you. You're just not allowed to do that. You're not allowed to do that. It creates an illegitimate election. So then what are some other things we got here? We got I'm gonna be going down the list now because I got a lot of questions and I got a lot of comments. We saw in Canada, we heard Justin Trudeau, right? Justin Trudeau, whose father, Pierre Trudeau, was a pederast, right? Somebody who well, I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with the story of Kathy O'Brien, but he, among others, sexually assaulted her. He comes from one of the Cabal family lines, right? Which is why you have like a retard pretty boy like Justin Trudeau, right? You have a total idiot. He's like, nothing against a school teacher, right? My dad was a school teacher, but this is a guy like taught like elementary school and then became prime minister. Okay, sorry, it doesn't just happen that way. Like, you got to actually do something. Apparently not. If you've been groomed to play a role and be basically just play a role for them while they do everything behind the scenes, yeah, well, that you can get away with that. So we have our pretty boy Justin Trudeau, who basically was talking about how we're going to use coronavirus to start the new world order. And also, there's been a big topic of debate in Canada recently because they've been creating sites. The government's been creating sites, little camps, right? Little camps for people who don't take their shots, right? Don't take their shots. If you don't take your shot, we're going to have to put you in a camp. We're going to have to take you away and put you in a camp. I'm not joking about this, by the way. I'm really not joking about it. This is actually what the government has admitted. The language behind it is open-ended about what they can put somebody in the camp for. So, to emphasize again, I've said this multiple times. We are winning. We're going to win. It's not anything we need to worry about. But anybody who says like, well, let's just see, we'll try again in 2 years, or we'll give it up. Like, like I'm not trying to be hyperbolic here, guys, but they will literally kill you. They're literally going to kill you. They're going to put you in camps. The mask is off. Okay, there's no more subterfuge. There's no more going back to the old system. They don't want the old system anymore. It's full speed ahead to their great reset, as they call it. That's what they want. They want the great reset. We want the great awakening. They want the great reset. And the great reset means you take this vaccine, and this is not a joke vaccine. There's stuff in this, right? By the way, there's a bunch of different vaccines. I don't want to get too heavily into that part of it, but let's just say I'm not going to be taking anything that I'm not going to be taking anything anyone offers me. But Joe Biden's going to mandate it, and he's going to mandate a very specific one, and it's going to shut down your pineal glands. What is it? Is it going to put you inside of like a permanent kind of energetic prison planet? I mean, sorry guys, I'm not taking the risk on this stuff, but there's a reason that they're so adamant about you having a vaccine which has no proven efficacy whatsoever, right? The annual flu vaccine like has like a top 30% success rate. 10 to 30%, it's like completely useless. Now you have the COVID one, no trials whatsoever, and it's not. I mean, it's not going to work because they're already telling you, oh yeah, after you take the vaccine, you're still going to have to wear a mask everywhere, and you're still going to have to social distance. So nothing else is changing anyway. So hey, sorry, it's not good, and they're creating camps for this purpose in Canada. And now Joe Biden's saying he's going to mandate it under his presidency. Fortunately, he's not going to be president, so it doesn't matter. But these are evil fucks, and they're evil fucking people. And there is no way that we're giving up on this. There's no way we're giving up. We're not giving up. This is a fight to the death. It's them or us. Literally, it's them or us. And so, thank God every day we've got President Trump who doesn't give up either. And he's going to stand with us, and we stand with him, and everything gets sorted out. That's the way it works. He's going to be doing a lot of the heavy lifting. We need to get out there, show him support. He wants to have a rally, show up for that rally. Post the truth, spread it around, stay positive. Continue to demoralize them. They're getting demoralized. They're getting afraid now. You heard them the other day. They were talking about how Trump's conceded, because Trump made this tweet. He said the only reason Biden won is because of all this fraud, because it was a rigged election. And the media was like, Trump finally concedes. Like, this is like fan fiction. Like, they wish. It's like, okay, well, Trump says the election's rigged, but it doesn't matter. At the very least, he's conceded. It's like, are you fucking nuts, man? Are you fucking nuts? Like, he's not conceding. You can tell yourself this stuff because he didn't put win in quotation marks. You can tell yourself this. It doesn't make it true. So let's see here. Yeah, and we just had another thing here. We had Biden listed in a criminal case in Ukraine, because remember, he was bragging about this, how he made Ukraine get rid of their prosecutor because the prosecutor was looking into, good old Hunter, right? Hunter Biden, angelic little child. They were going after him for corruption. And so basically Joe Biden as vice president said, no, you're going to fire that prosecutor or we're not going to give you $1 billion in aid. And so they fired him. And so now, that they're going after him now. Now Biden is wanted for criminal charges in Ukraine. We're going to have to fight Ukraine over that because we want to put him in jail. We don't want him to go to Ukrainian prison. Or do we? Maybe they actually know how to treat their prisoners a little bit better than we do. I'm all about it being very humane, right? I like a humane prison, like someplace in the Donbass. I think that would be a nice, ethical place to put Joe Biden, in a prison in the Donbass. Let's give him to the the Donbass Revolutionary Army, and let's see how they feel about this. I think that they're very mild-mannered people. They should treat him well. I'm not going to do anything. Below board to him. All right. So Looking Glass is basically a technology that allows you to scan multiple timelines. It's a highly advanced computing program that allows you to see multiple timelines. And so I've mentioned it before because the cabal had been developing it since the 60s, got more and more sophisticated. That's one of the ways. That's one of the reasons, guys. You wonder, like, how did this very small group of people become so powerful? Well, they had access to this technology. They had access to these special programs. And so if you know that, okay, if I put this person in and if this person runs in this state, then this is going to happen, or like the chances of this outcome occurring, the outcome you want occurring is like 85%, then you can constantly leverage these probabilities to get yourself in the highest positions of power. But that stuff stopped working in 2012. The timelines basically blocked. They got blocked from being able to um, see out other outcomes besides for them losing. Didn't mean they didn't try, but hasn't been working out so well for them. So let me see some other stuff here. I want to answer some questions. Answer some questions here. Kestro, Klaus Schwab talking about upcoming, upcoming cyber pandemic. Yeah, well, there's another thing today that happened to a place called Americold, which basically does a lot of the storage, the refrigeration services for American food, and they were under a pretty significant cyber attack. And so one of you guys sent me that. That was cool to hear about. If there's going to be a food shortage, maybe that's one of the ways it comes about, because they're obviously not going to be able to target farms. They'd have to target something in the supply chain. And, refrigeration would be definitely a way to spoil a couple weeks worth of food to really disrupt the supply chain. We're back to college eating ramen noodles, right? That's how it goes. Um, let's see here. So I got so much stuff here. I got so many questions. Klaus talking about merging of our digital and biological entities. Well, yeah, that's what the cabal wants to do. And that's the funny thing is like they always made fun of us when we'd say this stuff. We'd say, yeah, they want to download us into the AI, right? Like, oh, you're a conspiracy theorist. And then they just, like, 2 years later, they just go say it outright. And people are so fucking retarded. They're so fucking retarded. They're so fucking asleep that it like goes right over their head. They're like, oh, that'd be cool. Oh, see, like, oh no, you're a conspiracy theorist. And it's like, oh yeah, it's cool, sure. Yeah, I'll drink that bug juice. Yeah, I'm gonna have some bug juice because they told me to have it. I swear, like the number of people who are still so asleep, it gets really annoying. It gets really annoying. It's really annoying just to see how fucking dumb people are. They just can't wake up. They can't wake up. They literally are choosing complete slavery, and they can't see it. And it's not left versus right. It's as Jay Campbell says, dissonance versus resonance. And that's the filtering that's going on right now. Is people who are not in a victim consciousness are being pulled towards Trump, and people who are in a victim consciousness are being pulled towards Biden and the cabal. And you either snap out of that or you're stuck in it. That's the way it is, right? That's the way it is. You can't, as the tension increases, you either have to become more of a victim or you have to choose agency. There's just no other option. There's no other option. So let me see some of these questions here. A couple other little comments here, just before I move on here. So just guys, regarding Dominion software, right? So Dominion was used in 30 states, 29, 30 states, but actually the software that is on Dominion, which is the backdoor hacking, that's actually in pretty much every state. So that's why this could end up being a 50-state recount. Sidney Powell said anybody in a congressional race, anybody in any race where they lost by under 6% should contact her and be part of the lawsuit, because basically we're talking about a 6% shift probably across the board. Some areas having it more than others. Obviously the main swing states probably a little bit extra targeted, because, by the way, that's one of the reasons they shut shit off in the middle of the night, because the calibration, you guys probably saw this, right? the calibration wasn't correct. The calibration was not. Trump was winning by so much that their normal calibration to swing elections wasn't big enough. So they had to shut off the system, reboot. Let's get a bunch of fake ballots to try to like prove it. And that's the story. That's the story. That's why all those states shut down. That's why you saw 138,000 votes for Biden automatically. They just changed the software in those swing states. So a couple other things here. Yeah, yeah. We got Shelton. She was supposed to be part of the Fed. Republicans didn't vote for her in the end. We had two had COVID and sat out. One skipped. Maybe that's going to pass in the future if if and when John James hits the Senate. Guys, Judy Shelton, by the way, I was informed about this, was a Fed nominee who's all about going back to the gold standard. Guys, tactical setbacks, not a big deal. Again, not a big deal. Don't stress about this stuff. War has little swings back and forth like this. You might lose a skirmish. Doesn't change the overall outcome of the battle. Nothing to worry about. Okay. And then we had, just before I started this Periscope, we had the news that Trump team has proof that 15,000 people from out of state voted in the Nevada election. So that could make a big difference. There was a big thing going on there. The Democrats were saying, we have to change the election stuff because some kind of minor commissioner position, I think it was Democrat against Democrat, and there was all sorts of issues. And so they were talking about how, fraud and how things had to get fixed. They couldn't trust the election. The election was illegitimate. And it's like you're talking about it for this little, like, talk about no strategic thinking. You would think if you were on Biden's team, you'd tell those Democrats to shut the fuck up and be like, look, just swallow it. Just like eat this little commissioner race in Nevada, in Clark County, Nevada. Just eat this. And they didn't do it. They had to go out. They had to go in and like make a big stink about how there was problems with the election. And so, which is like perfect for us. But this is the thing. These people are stupid. They're stupid. They're stupid demons. That's what they are. They can't even control themselves on the most basic level. They can't control themselves. So let's see here. All right, I got these questions. I'll scroll down first. There's no right to body integrity in Canada. There's no right to body integrity pretty much anywhere except for the United States. And they're going to try to change that. Yeah, little Marco officially calling Biden president-elect. Well, little Marco was hanging out with Colty at those bath parties down in Miami. So, that's you got blackmail, right? You got blackmail on him. That's probably the least of it too. So let's see. I'm going down here, guys. I have a lot of big questions I want to answer here, but I'm gonna keep going down to see if there's anything. Have any of all the courts agreed there's fraud any at all? They've agreed towards like various injunctions and stuff like that, but you haven't seen anything too substantial yet. I mean, I don't think that people still don't get. They just don't get how corrupt the country is. They don't understand. Like, think about how bad it had to get to this point. Like, this didn't just happen out of the ether, right? We have probably 3/4 of Congress. I would say 75 to 80% of Congress. I said this before, but 75 to 80% of Congress is completely compromised. Completely compromised. Now, you could say that maybe half of them aren't bad people, but they're being blackmailed, and maybe they're salvageable if you take away the blackmailers. But I mean, as far as I'm concerned, just fucking resign. Like, if someone blackmails you and you really don't want people to find out what the truth is, just be a fucking decent person. You either have two options if you don't want to be a piece of shit. Okay? The first option is you say, do your best, motherfuckers. Do your best. And that probably ends up with you getting you know, suicide or having your reputation destroyed. But I would respect someone who did that, especially if their vote really mattered in a situation. But the second piece here is that just resign. Just resign and just like, okay, you know what? You win. You win this round, but I'm not going to compromise my personal integrity by being your lackey. I'm not going to suck your dick. Okay? I'm out. You win. Somebody else can do that dirty work, but not me. Right? Maybe I'll fight it from the outside. But honestly, I mean, this is why it's so important to be clean when you're fighting evil. If you're clean when you're fighting evil, they have very little to work with against you because they try to find these shame points, right? These things that you're ashamed of, these things that they can control you with. If you get rid of your shame, if you completely own yourself, then what can they do? Like the way to do it if somebody's blackmailing you and they say if you don't do this, I'm going to tell people, it'd be like, I'm going to hold a press conference right now and I'm going to tell people what I did, right? And I'm also going to, and then if you want to get killed, you can tell them about the people who are blackmailing you. It's a great way to do it and get killed. But that's a brave person. That's a very, very brave person to go and say that, to go on the offense with that, right? And that's what Trump did. Remember the famous thing back in 2016 when they were trying to talk about, grab him by the pussy. They were trying to do all this stuff, this character assassination. And he went on stage with all of like Bill Clinton's, sexual, like all the people that Bill Clinton sexually abused and just did a press conference right there. It was amazing. It was amazing because they were expecting him to fold or they're expecting to break him. And he went right on offense against them. So you can do that same stuff. You can do that same stuff if you're brave and you have the proper protection. And to be fair, up until Trump, a lot of these people didn't have the proper protection. But the thing is now, if you're too much of a fucking snake, you don't like a lot of these people, they don't actually want to do anything good. They just like their status, they like their cushy position. They're not statesmen, they're politicians, and they need to go. They need to go. I'm not saying they all have to go to jail. Many of them just need to get the fuck out. Just get the fuck out. Get the fuck out of our country's leadership. You are not worthy of it. And guys, that's going to be us in the future. We will be taking over in the future. There are many, many people who have been prepared for this stuff. They are going to be leading the country into a new age. But we got to get these slime balls out of here, which is why when they out themselves with their cowardice, good. You understand how easy it's going to be to take these people down in primaries once they lose their cabal backers? If they don't resign, they got one term left. Because once there's no cabal left to protect their reputation, you run a primary campaign against them with all the stuff that they did, all their cowardice, they're out. They're out. It's the way it is. All right. So I got a couple of other things here. I got a couple of other stuff. Yeah, Crenshaw's cabal, guys, by the way. Tate and Wudana are not cabal. They're not, I mean, they're not cabal. They're more tied into the Eastern European underground. No, they hate the cabal stuff. They hate the cabal stuff. Well, yeah. So a little thing about Arizona, a little side here. So people have kind of wondered, why is Arizona such a piece of shit? Why is Arizona such a shitty place? Theoretically Republican place, but just fucks up. Just not like constantly let down by Republican leadership there. They put up Mick Sally in 2018, terrible candidate, no personality, and she loses. And then the governor appoints her. Then the governor appoints her to the other position, the other Senate seat. And then, of course, and then she lost it again. It's like, but you have to ask yourself, how is this happening, right? How did this occur? Guys, can you tell me who was a major politician from Arizona? Who was a major politician from Arizona? Yeah, McCain family, exactly. So McCain, the ghost of McCain is still in Arizona. Okay, and McCain was very deep cabal. So Arizona was a cabal state, right? It was a cabal state. Tons of like the vast majority of the human trafficking was going through Arizona. Drug running going through Arizona. John McCain's Deep Six program, Arizona. Okay, that's where it was based, in Arizona. So it's going to take some time to clear out that state of the sludge. From what I understand about McSally, she was from a McCain kind of group, and they wanted her to run like that. But then she kind of had the complication that people in Arizona actually wanted Trump, and so she was sort of stuck with like one foot in both camps. But that's why she kept getting pushed there. Yeah, I do think that we're going to win Arizona once we deal with stuff in Maricopa County. I do think so. I think he's going to, I mean, he won the state. Obviously, he won the state. So let's go through some of these. Let's go through some of these questions here. So, not directly linked to COVID cabal, but loosely linked to current transition. I feel centered and connected with Source when alone, and this year I've come to understand my true self. But I live in a student house, and when interacting, I'm finding it hard to stay heart centered. I resort back to old ways, personas. I know this is all part of personal growth, but I would love to hear any insight you have on getting comfortable expressing authentic self around those who may not be a vibrational match. So it's tough when you're young because especially in like a college environment, you're gonna have a lot of people who, you're gonna have, oh yeah, Joe Arpaio, right? You're gonna have a lot of people around you who are just not there yet. They're not there yet, but there are people who are. So first off, I would go and try to seek out those people. That's the first thing I would do. Try to make some friendships with people who maybe see things a bit differently. Um, but the other thing here is that being heart centered is not like, how do I put this? If you're heart centered, you can still be very, very cool in a college environment. In fact, I would argue that it's easier. Like, not to be blunt about it, but being like just because you're heart centered doesn't mean you're like a bitch, right? Heart centered is just simply connecting with people emotionally in a lot of ways. I mean, in a lot of ways, it's opening your heart to people. So you can be filled with fun, you can be the life of the party, and you can make people feel really warm and comfortable. People who do that may not be as fully heart centered. They might not be fully heart centered, but they're definitely connecting with their heart. You can just feel the difference when somebody, their heart centers completely shut down, right? It's completely shut down. So I want to emphasize something with this because, like, I love that. You mean you guys are here? You're listening to COVID cabal. Crazy stuff, right? Crazy topics. Don't let the conspiracy path, so to speak. Don't let the conspiracy path throw you off of being like a normal person. Like, the reality is that the more heart centered I became, the less I actually cared about trying to the less I cared about trying to share this stuff with other people. Like, I leave people, part of being heart centered is understanding that people maybe aren't ready for this stuff. They're not open to it. Um, I don't bring this stuff up at family dinners. If someone asks me, I'm happy to tell them. But I'm happy to hang out with friends and party and do things. And, I won't enjoy conversations about like politics and stuff that are about stupid shit. Like, I just tune that out. But have fun, have fun. Like, enjoy the fact that you're this age and you can connect with people. The heart center thing is just gonna take things to the next level. Well, this is my dad's study, so you tell me what he thinks of Trump. You tell me what he thinks about him. Heart centered means coming from the energetic over here. So a shorthand way of saying it is if you've had ever a heartwarming feeling, um, that's your heart center opening up. Actually, I think you can be heart centered on the firing range. Well, you could if you're hunting. I think, um, it's you can have compassion for what you kill, and that's a different topic. That's a very spiritual masculinity. It's a very, very spiritual masculinity. Um, we are most time at my parents because of COVID. We have an apartment in New York, but My wife and I have been down here because New York's shut down, and she's pregos. So, all right, let's see. Hey, Pat, love the periscopes and big dick energy you've been putting into this fight. Can you tell me more? Can we talk more about ETs next Periscope? Laura Eisenhower did a video recently about the friendly ETs, the Ponti who've been using Twitter interacting with us. According to them, first official contact with 32 different star nations is slated for fall 2021, and they'll come down and say hello. This is going to change everything. People are going to want answers. Everything that's been suppressed about our history will come to light. If this ain't the event that will violently kick people into the Great Awakening, I don't know what will. After Trump gets reelected and the mass arrest, do you think it's possible the cabal in desperation could hijack this peaceful OFC, pull out the hoax alien invasion card to bring us under greater military industrial complex control? I don't expect them to go down easily. Keep fighting the good fight. Blessings to you and your family. Okay, so I'm not gonna go crazy talking about the ETs because that's like a multiple hour long Periscope thing, but I will speak about this event where they come theoretically. So there was a cabal staged event that was planned called Project Bluebeam, and it was supposed to be like an Independence Day kind of event where you'd have aliens come down, and the cabal would use it to basically create global control, right? This event, I've heard of this event occurring. What's his face? Majestic 12. What's their face, I guess. Majestic 12 was a very good account, a super resonant disclosure account, which eventually got banned. But they talked a lot about this event occurring. There's a point in here though that I think is, yeah, Project Bluebeam is a psyop. It is a psyop. So it's very clear that there are ETs, different groups, predominant ones involved in this situation, the Pleiadians, predominant ones. I've also heard of Andromedians, right? And then, of course, there's ones that are not human looking, right? So, because the Pleiadians are, I mean, a lot of these aliens, one of the things that I think is difficult for people to understand, because they think of aliens and they think people who are not like humans, but actually, most aliens, or at least a significant number of them, look just like us. Now, they have different DNA activation than us, but they actually look just like us. This is why I was telling you guys months ago, you got to watch Stargate. You got to watch the Stargate series, because the Stargate series was written by the U.S. Air Force as part of a disclosure program once Congress in the 1990s would not release certain things. So Stargate is basically a white hat disclosure program. Okay. Kaba Moore's he's a good guy. I think he's certainly not negative intentioned. I think he does have contact. I don't know that he's, you know, I'll be honest, some of these guys get a little bit weird for me. Well, the Goa'uld are a representation of the reptilians, right? And how they use humans as hosts. So, like, I'm not saying that Stargate is literally true. Everything is literally true, but you know, the God, what is it called? The it's like the consortium or whatever. You know, it's like the cabal, right? They basically have, they talk about the cabal as well and their alliance with reptilians within the government. It's very, very much, it's very, very much disclosure heavy. Very, if you can read between the lines, you'll learn a lot. You'll learn a ton. Now, the one thing I wanted to say is that the one thing I want to say here about that question, you talked about the cabal trying to hijack this event and that this is going to kick people into the Great Awakening. This is in my perspective, this is not the way to look at it, because that event is not going to occur until a certain level of consciousness has been met and the cabal has been eliminated. Okay, so we don't get the alien event until other criteria has been achieved. So the cabal is not going to have power by the point the Palladians reveal themselves or whatever. It's not going to occur. People are going to have already come to terms with what's happened before they'd be ready to accept that next whammy, right? It's like you have to take it in steps. So the Pleiadians, I mean, people have already, like, if you didn't believe in this stuff before, it's become pretty impossible over the past 2 years to ignore it. There is so many videos of people who have been seeing the craft. There was that thing, what happened a couple weeks ago, that it showed up on the radar. Like, literally, a mothership showed up on weather radar and then flickered off. Like, they're around. They're around. I mean, they're around. Like, I might have even seen some stuff myself, but um, depends what do you mean by God, right? Because there are sometimes people refer to God. You know, you have the distortions within holy texts when they're actually referring to reptilians who acted as gods and manipulate our DNA. So depends on what you mean by God, right? And who created us. That God versus source God, which is the real God, versus the sort of impersonators. So let's see here. Next question. Hey Pat, thanks so much for your work. It's eye-opening to say the least. Just a quick question for the Periscope for now, though. How do you expect the big moments to be disseminated to the average person or masses as a whole when social and traditional media are clearly so compromised and corrupted? Are they going to turn to save face through the trust will be gone by then? I don't see so many people trusting alternative media or Trump news. I'm Irish, so the media is aggressively anti-Trump, though I understand that the lockdown, etc., is our election, so it'll be a bit different. Will it be a case of good people within these institutions rising up? It's a very good question. It's a very good question. I believe that we will see some of this rising up within media institutions. I do think you're going to see, from what I understand, there are. I mean, I even know people. There are good people in these institutions. There are good people in the institutions. A great example of this stuff is Tucker Carlson, right? Now, we all know and love Tucker, but people are giving him crap recently because, everyone's giving Fox crap and they feel like maybe, Tucker, I admit I got a little annoyed. He was calling Biden, President-elect Biden. I mean, maybe he was being a little sarcastic, but he was still using the term. And, I would like him to not even acknowledge this stuff. But here's the thing. People spurg out so much. They're so like childish about this stuff. I'm not saying I think it's great. Don't support Fox, but you actually want to keep supporting Tucker. I mean, I think give him feedback, and there's something to be said about the carrot and the stick here. But you do want to support Tucker because Tucker is one of the only really like honest media sources, and I know that he said recently that the network wants more of him because they realize that he is a moneymaker. And especially if the rest of the network's doing badly, then he has a lot of leverage. And so we want to keep giving him more leverage. Obviously, if he starts to really shift, but people are trying to demand things of him that are maybe not practical. Like people just don't have any practical experience. Don't have any practical experience with these kind of political matters. That's that they just want Trump. Trump do something. Trump do stuff. Tucker say what we wanted you to say. Sorry guys, it's like you got to be you got to be, political about this stuff. You have to understand your power vis-a-vis things, and maybe Tucker gets a little bit more leverage to share more truth if he concedes minor points to the network temporarily, right? So there are other people in these networks that are like Tucker. They don't have this platform that would like to do things, but they're constrained. They don't have the leverage. They don't have the leverage to do that. Yeah, I can do an ET Periscope. I can do that next time. They don't have the leverage. And so but I do think that they're going to come out more once the cabal people above them are taken away. Now, that said, I don't know that that's the way it's all going to go down. I don't know that that's the way that things are going to get closed out. It's very possible that we have to use the presidential messaging system, right? And that's the reason that Trump has it. Trump has it so that he can tell, so that he can bypass the news when he has to. Now, that's something that you don't use lightly. You use that only when you absolutely have to use it. So we'll see. It's a card he's got to play, and he can play it at some point. We'll see. It's a very good question. I don't know the full answer, but I do think that you are going to see people within the media organizations turn on their masters, or at least maybe once their masters get defanged, they'll have the opportunity to do so. Do I think in the end we're going to have to use force to get this done? I actually don't think that. I don't think that we're going to have to use force to get this done. And the reason is because I don't, I'm not, look, I'm not opposed to it. Like, if we got to the point, from a vibrational standpoint, um, massive nonviolent demonstrations are way more effective, way more powerful. So you can think, and this is why, you think about all these legal positions. Bat was talking about this a couple weeks ago. Like, judges have to make these decisions based on legal issues, right? Is what they did legal? No, it's not. What the left did was not legal by any stretch of the imagination. Okay, so that's a point. And then you have the justice issue, which is that, was this stolen from Trump? Did he actually win? He did win. So going this way is justice. But there's also the aspect of, like, what do the people want? What are the people willing to show up? It's very important that you get out there and show your support for Trump physically. I would love to see the governor and the secretary of state's houses surrounded by people. I would love that. I would love to have a couple thousand Trump supporters outside their houses for a couple of days. That would be great. I would love to have that happen with the judges. Nobody's being violent. They're just outside with flags. They're just outside with flags. They're just outside squatting outside their house. Okay? It's a powerful message. We don't have to get violent. We have the numbers. This isn't like a small group we win more people by being nonviolent. The Civil Rights Act, all the civil rights movement was all nonviolent demonstration. Because nonviolence, simply saying I don't consent, is actually more powerful than violence. Right? I'm not saying that there isn't a place for violence, but I don't see any necessity for it in these circumstances. Because when you get into violence, you create polarity, right? People want to get into polarity with you. So if you have an occupying force, like you have the British in India, okay, they're being told they have to attack Indians, but then the Indians don't fight them back. There's no polarity there. And so actually it pulls that higher vibrational stance of nonviolence, pulls people away from that situation, pulls the people who are supposed to discipline them away from it. It just doesn't work. It doesn't work. It fucks with their heads. So I think that, you have millions of Americans. Let's say Biden were to take it, false made up timeline, but Biden takes it. You have millions of people protesting in every city across the entire country non-violently, and they're doing it, and Trump's not giving up, and they're doing it the system won't be able to sustain that. Biden, Kamala Harris has droned those people. You think the military is going to accept that? The military is not going to accept that stuff. You'd have the government collapse because you'd have like 30, 40 million people who just would refuse to pay taxes. They refuse to do anything. They refuse to cooperate with the government. The government would collapse. So there's no need for violence. That said, Antifa wants violence. And so you do need to prepare to defend yourself. You do need to be prepared to light those motherfuckers up if they come towards your home or your family. That's definitely a necessity because they are interested in the polarity. And so you have to, honor that. They're too low vibration to even, they're just demons. I mean, they're too low vibration to even consider this stuff. All right, let's see. We just got a few things here. Hey man, really, really can't thank you enough for reigniting my spirit recently. Regarding COVID and cabal, was wondering if you could discuss Trump's shortcomings in the 90s and how it brought him to his two potential and ascension now. Something you've kind of acknowledged on the timeline recently. Well, I'm being somewhat speculative here, but just kind of reading his history. He has look, the reality is that he's been prepped and put in a position for this for easily 40 years, right? He's been in this position. He's been playing this for a long time. Thomas Victor, I don't know. He he claims that Trump has spies throughout the Democratic Party. He understands how they work, and I agree with that. I think that's all completely true. Um, which is one of the reasons why he's so effective. This has been a long time coming. You can see his interviews with Oprah in the 80s. Um, Larry King, he's been talking about running for president. He's been asked about running for president. Some predictive programming going on there, right? So at some point in the 90s, I mean, I know his first marriage fell apart. Um, he talked about it like his first wife, Ivana Trump, had become very much more masculine, and he was not really their relationship was kind of becoming much more of a business partnership. And so I think in the 90s, he went through a little bit of an escape in general. He started to escape. That's when he became like the playboy. That's when he got all the headlines about being a playboy. Started using his money and fame to date all these models, and eventually, knocked up. I think she was actually a journalist, Marla Maples, right, at Tiffany. But that was kind of a short-lived thing. He went back to being a playboy after that, until he married Melania, who was of a very ancient bloodline, right? Very ancient, fertility cult, and in Slovenia. I've actually heard some very interesting things, not just from BAP's podcast. I've heard some other interesting stuff about, you know, it makes you wonder why he chose her, right? Makes you wonder. But at any rate, I think that in the 90s, he did face a lot of, he kind of fell into this escape period where he was just this party animal and super confident, super cocky, like he could do nothing wrong. And he stopped, I think, really focusing. I think he stopped, and he admits this himself, and he got a little bit reckless, and he pretty much lost everything. And that's why his next big book was The Art of the Comeback, because, well, he had to come back, right? He had to come back from it all. And that was really important for him because it's like if you're a young guy and you're confident and you're talented and you can manifest things and you get so rich and famous, but that's all it's almost like you feel like you got all, so you can't lose it. So then losing it makes you actually have a better relationship with it when you get it back, because then you realize that, well, first off, that you could do it again, you could bring it all back, but second off, that the things that you lost it for weren't worth it. And so I think it matures you quite a bit. And yes, it's true. All men do go through it to a certain extent. I mean, not all men like lose billions of dollars and have to remake billions of dollars. That's not, not all men see it to that extent. But so I think that it was a big preparation for him doing this. But I think probably the biggest preparation for him was, well, I mean, they all were big preparations, but him being on The Apprentice was huge. Him being an apprentice, being on WWF, that was absolutely, yeah. Look at these people. Like, these are such fucking losers. Oh, when do you found that sham university? Is that a neat comeback? Like, such fucking losers. They're the biggest fucking losers in the world. The amount that they like resent this guy. Like, I don't even care about Trump University. Maybe it was like kind of scammy, whatever. I don't know. I've heard from Stefan Arnio that actually it was extremely valuable to starting his real estate career. Rest in peace, Stefan. But Stefan Arnio did Trump University, and that's how he became a multimillionaire in real estate. So I don't know. Maybe it was one of those things that it was very expensive, but you got out of it what you put into it. But the point here is like these fucking losers who they have so much resentment for Trump, the billionaire celebrity who, gets models and is now the president of the United States, and they want him to lose because if Trump loses, it validates that they can say to themselves, "See, he was a loser." No, sorry guys, Trump's winning again. Trump's always winning, right? He's always winning, and you're always losing. And that's why you fucking suck. That's why these people fucking suck. It's hilarious. It's fucking hilarious. Yeah, not a billionaire. Okay. So here's another loser here. Not a billionaire. Oh no, he's not a billionaire. He's not a billionaire. Can you imagine trying to whatever. Enough of that. Enough of these people. It's just hilarious. It's pathetic. It's just pathetic stuff. So yeah, I think that set him up for this stuff. All right, so I got two more questions. Hey Pat, what do you make of RFK Jr.? Is he wise to but mute about what's going on? Brilliant man, full of integrity, it would seem. Thanks for all the good work. Your energy's infectious. Thank you. So I'm not going to pretend I know a ton about RFK Jr. RFK Jr. has been a front person in criticizing vaccines, and really pushing against that. You had Shiva, and look, I like Shiva. I think I would not say Shiva has clean energy. Okay, Shiva's an egomaniac. Um, he's very smart though, and he's clearly not trying to help the cabal. But the point here is just you have to filter some of these things out when you hear these people talk. You can get a lot of good information, but you can also see that they're service to self. They have a service to self agenda. And so you have people so this is actually a really good little sub point here. You have some people who are service to others that aid a service to self agenda. And then you have some people who are service to self that aid a service to others agenda. Right? So there's a lot of doctors and people. There are a lot of people who have actually a lot of people on the left. Actually, I think the left is a really good example. There's a lot of people on the left in the environmental movement who really are they have a service to others agenda. They are some of the most generous people you'll ever meet. Really, they're super generous. They're generous to a fault. Like they'll overgive themselves. But they are following a service to self agenda, the people, which is an overarching thing. Shiva is an example of a service to self individual who's serving actually a service to others agenda. So he's helping us to get more freedom and agency, but he's doing it for himself. Okay. Now that doesn't make him an enemy, but he's an opportunist. He's an opportunist. And that's okay, but it distorts the clarity of the message. Grifta Thunberg that's a psyop. She's a psyop. But I'm talking about your garden variety environmentalist leftist. Very, very much empathetic. Super empathetic people. They're caught in a false light program. Hopefully they'll break out of it. So he's criticized RFK Jr. a lot, which was a good sign for me to believe that RFK Jr. was probably a decent person, because it was obvious that he was attacking RFK Jr. for just his own kind of personal expediency. I don't really know a lot about RFK Jr., but from what I've seen about him, he's been fighting a really good fight over an important cause for a long time. And I don't follow him. I don't follow his work, but I've only heard good things about him from our corner, except from Shiva, who attacked him on very petty grounds. So, whatever. So, last question here. Is it true that we age backwards and physically look younger as we ascend to 5D? I haven't been able to catch the lives, but I always watch. Okay, always watch the replays. So grateful for your leadership. Okay, so I would not describe it. Grifta Thunberg is actually it's a funny hashtag. I would not say that we age backwards. I would not say that, because our physical bodies do age. They continue to age. They may not age as, you know, we may maintain a lot more health in the process, but we do age. Now, but here's the thing: as your vibration goes up, so does your. People will describe it as an aura. I think the aura is a little bit different, though. Basically, you are brighter. Okay, you're brighter. And I've seen this in person. I've seen people when they're undergoing energy work. I've seen them become multiple like lumens brighter. So your energy field increases, and so you get a glow to you. And so an older person who's higher vibration is going to glow, right? And I mentioned this in a tweet before about, yeah, like Donald at the rally. Donald has the highest. I've never seen anybody glow like him. I saw him from about, it's probably 100 feet away from him, and I was like, I could not believe how much he was glowing. I mean, it was crazy, 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 crazy stuff. Yeah, Roger Stone glows too. Um, so that makes a big difference in how attractive you look, because you look brighter and you feel better to be around. And so by feeling better to be around, you're more attractive. People have talked about this with like girls who aren't super attractive but have like a really good vibe to them, and they're very feminine, they're very sweet, they're very bubbly. That makes them more attractive. Part of this is unconsciously energy that we're detecting in people. We're feeling different energetics from them, and the energetics are more attractive. So the bigger someone's energy, the more attractive they are. So, well, I wouldn't say they look younger, but you do look younger. You don't go backwards, but let's just say you don't, like, when we associate old, and if you go to a nursing home, I mean, you see it. There's like a decrepitude. There's like a very sadness to it. There's a super low vibration, low energy kind of. It's very depressing to go into a nursing home. It's very depressing to go into a nursing home. It's terrible energy in those places, which is one of the reasons I'm not about them, because I think it actually lowers the vibration of old people. By putting them in that environment, old people should be around young people. That's a separate thing. But it's related because they get the energy from the younger people. But people who are higher vibration, they glow more, so they don't look as old, and they are more attractive, right? And you see this a lot. I have to say, there are women who are very like, doesn't matter if they've gone to their 30s, 40s, even 50s, but they're very, very spiritually aligned, and they don't age like other women, right? They don't age like other women. There's like much more of a glow to them. Contrast this with the sort of left hand path. Well, the diet stuff, of course, matters too. 100%, 100%. But those are all connected. They're like different, because somebody who's going to eat that diet, usually, if they are, I mean, I'm not going to say that 100%, because, Donald Trump eats Big Macs and Diet Coke. So, there's not yours truly drinks wine. Um, there's exceptions to the rules. We skate by on certain stuff here. But contrast with left-hand path people, right? I tweeted this a couple weeks ago, that people who take the left-hand path either look disgusting, like trollish, or they look extremely seductive. And that's kind of like the seduction thing is like the black magic, right? It's like they're gonna look super hot, sexual. You're gonna want them, um, and they try to extend that. That's the whole thing with adrenochrome, etc. They try to extend this sort of seduction, but just like the witch who you pull off the veil and she's an old hag, that's the left hand path, right? You have them, they're seductive, and then they're ugly, actually. And that's why you see all these celebrities suddenly look incredibly ugly. Suddenly look incredibly ugly, right? All of a sudden, once they lose their stock. If you align yourself with the light, you're gonna get that glow. You're gonna get that constant download of life and spirit. So anyway, guys, that's it for tonight. We got Dane relationship Periscope tomorrow. I'll see you guys then.